For the elevated push-up, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have some type of sturdy anchor point or platform that we're going to be using to push off of. You can use desks and couches and plyometric boxes and shop counters and all kinds of stuff, but more often than not, you're going to find those pieces of furniture aren't as sturdy or as reliable as simply setting up something in the gym. I like to use a squat rack and a barbell. It makes sure that I have a sturdy platform and that I can measure the progress pretty consistently. You can see all these notches in the squat rack. As I make progress in this movement, I simply move the barbell down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notches at a time until eventually I make it down to the floor. This is a great way to get yourself up to being able to do a full push-up on the ground. Yes, you can do knee push-ups, but I prefer to teach the push-up and learn the push-up the way that I'm going to be doing it on the ground, and that's with my legs fully extended. And it makes sure that the mechanics in the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist are all going to be the same. They change a little bit when you go down to the knees because the angle of the movement has changed pretty considerably. So it doesn't really matter what type of barbell you're using. In fact, you could just use like a beater bar that you don't typically use for lifting, or you can use some type of thick steel pipe if you would like to as well. I'm sure you could build something like this at home if you don't have this available, or you can continue to use furniture, just make sure it's pretty stout. So for the purpose of this today, first thing you want to do is make sure that both of these J-cups are the same height, and make sure that you acknowledge where they're at so that you can reference that for each time after. If you're not measuring where the height of the J-hooks are, you're not going to be able to tell if you're actually making progress. So for this movement, when getting set up, first thing I want to do is center myself on the barbell. All barbells have this smooth part. This one actually has some knurling in the center as well, but all of them have this smooth part right in the center before it meets the knurling or the rough part. I'm going to use that as a reference point to center myself, making sure that both J-hooks are equal distance from the center of the barbell. So once I've centered myself on the barbell, the next thing I'm going to do is grab that barbell shoulder width apart. Once I wrap my thumb and fingers around, I'm going to make sure my wrists are straight and they're not bent back. And when you grab shoulder width apart, make sure it is shoulder width apart. Make sure you're not outside of shoulder width. Make sure you're not inside. Wrap the thumb and fingers around securely. Make sure, again, the wrists are straight and they're not bent back like so. Once I've established my grip, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine like I'm bending that barbell backwards, creating that tension, and I'm going to rotate my biceps forward as I screw my shoulder into my upper back. Next thing I'm going to do, feet are together, and I'm going to drive my heels back into the ground, and I'm going to bring myself forward into that push-up position. I'm going to squeeze my glutes. I'm going to squeeze my legs together to create this tension all the way down from my heels up through my hips and torso, into my shoulders and upper back. Now I have tension going from the hands up towards the center of my body and from my feet up towards the center as well. From here, I'm going to make sure my head is neutral. I don't want to look up. I don't want to have my chin tucked. I'm going to take in a nice deep belly breath, and I'm going to lower myself down towards this barbell until at the bottom of the position, it's going to be roughly where the barbell is going to run into the base of your rib cage or right around your sternum. Make sure as you come down, your upper arm and your forearm are forming this 90-degree angle. We want to avoid having this excessive bend in the elbow. We just want to go for that 90 degrees. As you're lowering yourself down to the barbell, make sure those arms are in nice and tight. We want to avoid having those elbows pop out to the sides. We also want to avoid having our shoulders shrug up towards our neck as we're coming down. We want to keep those shoulder blades down and back as we roll ourselves in to keep the shoulders in a good position. Lastly, we've discussed the elbows coming out and the shoulders coming forward. We also want to make sure the hips aren't dropping and they're not coming back. Especially with the elevated push-up, it's very common to have people not quite be aware of where their hips are at. Make sure they stay in line with the rest of your body from your heels all the way up towards your shoulders so that your whole body is moving as a unit up and down through this range of motion. Once complete, 1 foot up, go ahead and release. From there, as you make progress, simply move the J-cups down and make your way to the floor. That's how you do an elevated push-up.